Yo, what's up fam all around the world? If it's your first time here, welcome to the squad. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're hyped to have you on board. The Houthis shot down a US drone, big mistake. March 4th, 2025. An American MQ-9 Reaper drone was cruising at 25,000 feet above the Red Sea, doing a routine ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance run. Tracking shipping lanes, scanning for heat signatures, and keeping an eye on western Yemen. Standard stuff. But today wasn't standard. At 8:42 local time, the Reaper's sensors picked up something, a sudden heat plume. Then another. 2 missiles launched from somewhere near Al-Hudaydah. They were fast, stupid fast. The Reaper popped flares, classic countermeasures, but no luck. One missile locked on and nailed the engine. Boom. $30 million worth of American tech spiraled into the water in a flaming arc. Minutes later, the Houthis dropped some grainy video online. Flames, wreckage, charred wings. They claimed responsibility, loud, proud, like they'd just won the Super Bowl. Back in DC, radio silence. Pentagon wouldn't confirm a thing. Press got the usual canned line. We're aware of the situation. But out on the water, the real conversation had already started. While the Houthis were busy celebrating on Twitter, US commanders were watching something else. The Reaper's live feed right before it went dark. Radar data, thermal echoes, all logged.
Well, out there on the water, the real conversation had already started. While the Houthis were busy celebrating on Twitter, US commanders were watching something else. The Reaper's live feed right before it went dark. Radar data, thermal echoes, all logged.
Less than 20 minutes after impact, the Combat Info Center on the Eisenhower had coordinates locked. Radar signatures, timestamps, satellite confirmation. The launch site was no ghost. It was a glowing red dot in every secure war room.
3 decks up, a battle officer stood over the digital map. The captain didn't have to raise his voice. Light it up.
That phrase flipped the carrier from passive to predator. Bravo package? Not routine. Not a back-off warning shot. It's a full-blown multi-phase retaliation strike. They'd been waiting on a reason. The Houthis just gave them one. By the 40-minute mark, carrier crews were already prepping missiles. Pilots were yanked out of bunks and briefed. Nobody needed convincing. They'd seen the feed. They watched that Reaper die live.
One officer later said, "It wasn't just a drone. That was a message to us."
So we wrote one back. Coordinates uploaded, strike packages armed, intel confirmed the site was still hot, hadn't been fully cleared, moved fast and they'd hit more than just dirt. Meanwhile, on a nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the VLS cells opened, Tomahawks loaded, armed. Above, an E-2D Hawkeye got into position to steer the wave. Somewhere behind the clouds, growlers were already jamming Houthi comms, muddying the waters. No press releases, no leaks, just jet fuel and intent. This wasn't a political response, it was surgical, mechanical, loud. And for the men and women on those planes, they weren't flying to Yemen, they were flying toward closure. Back on the Truman's flight deck, night lit up like a steel thunderstorm. Within minutes of the green light, the deck moved like a living machine. Only this machine breathed out warheads and JP-8 like it was second nature. Sure, USS Dwight D. Eisenhower was the lead ship, but the Truman was in the area too, and her birds were locked and loaded. Flight crews worked in dead silence, except for sharp clipped orders. Overhead, a Hawkeye E-2D circled, casting the first pair of eyes over the sky. Right behind it, a pair of EA-18G growlers rolling toward the catapult, prepped to jam enemy radar and blind whatever early warning systems the Houthis still had online. Then came the birds with teeth. Each Hornet screamed off the deck, roaring under the catapult with a blast of afterburner that shook the whole carrier. The launch tempo was brutal, one jet every 30 seconds. The night sky over the Red Sea turned into a freeway for war. Meanwhile, on a nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, VLS hatches hissed open with a hydraulic snarl. The launch tubes came alive. Inside, Tomahawk cruise missiles were locked, loaded, and just waiting for the go. The destroyer's radar was humming, scanning the skies for trouble, but tonight they weren't on defense. Tonight they were sending a message. Seconds later, the first Tomahawk howled into the sky, then another, then another. Multi-domain strike package officially launched from the sea, from the sky, from the dark. And the message?
"You take out a drone, we bring the whole damn squadron."
And the squadron was already inbound. First contact came just after 0200 local time. A mobile launch platform outside Al-Hudaydah lit up on thermal, briefly, then permanently. A JDAM dropped from 25,000 feet made sure of that. Boom! Secondary explosion confirmed. They were storing munitions close by. The Houthis? They didn't stand a chance. Blind, deaf, and way too slow. Then came the hammer. Wave 2 brought the rest of the strike package, targeting a suspected drone warehouse buried inside a civilian industrial zone. These were precision hits. No guarantees. But the buildings? Gone. Multiple secondary pops echoed for minutes. Fuel, explosives, electronics, whatever they were hiding. One of the final targets was the big one. A known command bunker dug into the Rose Hills. Deep, camouflaged, reinforced, didn't matter. The last axe hit it dead center, sending a shockwave through the sand. Surveillance drones caught the moment the bunker doors blew out. Back on the Truman, the pilots landed and debriefed. No losses, all targets hit, mission complete. But there were no cheers, no high fives. This wasn't Hollywood, just silent nods. Mission logs updated. Birds refueled for the next run.
Meanwhile, CENTCOM announced a successful strike, low risk, 0 U.S. casualties, and several high-value targets likely neutralized. But officially, still no comment.
The White House? Dead silent, no podium, no press release, because this wasn't just a response.
This was about rewriting the rules. And for the Houthis, they didn't just lose a drone launcher, they lost the whole map.
By sunrise, the sky over Yemen was quiet again. Too quiet. Satellite photos taken hours after told the truth. Charred buildings, collapsed walls, burning debris fields. The command bunker? Gone. The drone warehouse? Vaporized. What remained was a string of blackened craters stretching across 50 square kilometers. But from DC? Still no sound. No official statement. No briefing room chatter.
When reporters pressed for answers, they got the usual deflection. We continue to monitor regional security developments. We weren't done watching. On the ground in Yemen, the effect was instant. Eyewitnesses near Al-Hudaydah described a night of explosions that shook the ground like a quake. Civilian infrastructure remained intact. But fear settled in anyway. Everyone knew what got hit, and who sent the message.
The Houthis tried to play it down fast. State-run media posted fake pics claiming nothing important was hit. Just empty buildings, training areas, routine demolitions. No one bought it. Even Iranian media, usually quick to hype up Houthi wins, went quiet. No victory footage, no propaganda montages, just stillness.
Back-channel signals revealed internal panic. Broken comms, frozen logistics, scrambled leadership. This strike didn't just smash structures. It shattered command flow, and that silence from Washington, completely intentional. Because in war, words hit harder when you don't say them. Let the images talk. Let the enemy wonder if you're done, or just getting started.
But one thing was crystal. This wasn't some slap-on-the-wrist response. This was a cold, calculated display. Precision, speed, 0 losses. The kind of op that everyone remembers. Especially the ones hiding behind hills and hashtags. You don't get a free pass to hit US assets, and if you take that shot, you better pray it lands. Because if it doesn't, what's coming next is silence. The kind right before the next boom.
The Reaper finished its mission. And what people forget is, an MQ-9 isn't just a flying camera. It's a full-blown spy platform with sharper eyes than anything you'll find on Google Earth. And that bird on March 4th, it saw everything. 90 seconds before impact, a sketchy radar signature popped up near the coast east of Al-Hudaydah. It wasn't your usual low-power surveillance blip. Nah, this was a classic high-frequency spike, the kind that screams SAM system getting ready to launch.
Command locked in. They zoomed the Reaper in and sent it straight at the source. What it picked up in real time was crystal clear heat trail from the launch vehicle. Energy signatures, directional radar sweeps, everything. Beamed straight to the strike group intel cell. Even when it knew it was being hunted, the drone kept shooting like a soldier crawling with a radio in hand. And right before impact, it dumped a full blast of imagery through the satellite link. Final packet confirmed. Match found Iranian-made Scad-2 SAM launcher. Boom, you know the rest.
But without that footage, the US strike would have been a shot in the dark. Instead, it was a scalpel to the chest. Turns out the drone's last act wasn't a failure, it was a delivery. And thanks to that feed, The follow-up strike didn't just hit something, it hit the right thing. And that changed everything. This wasn't just mission complete. It was a gear shift, a quiet but deliberate yank on the escalation ladder. The game just changed.
First step, new rules of engagement. Before all this, U.S. forces in the Red Sea were strictly defensive, only fired if fired upon. Now, there's a new clause. If it pings, it dies. Any radar signal that even looks like a fire control system? Fair game.
Second, the carriers changed formation. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Harry S. Truman kicked off full-time combat air patrols. Layered fighter coverage, ready to strike anything before it touches the coastline. At any given moment, there were at least 2 FA-18s flying high, locked and loaded. Add in the Hawkeye E-2D scanning from above, and MQ-9 Reapers watching from below. Eyes everywhere.
The Navy even deployed MQ-4C Tritons, high-altitude ISR beasts that can loiter for 24-plus hours. They weren't hunting targets, they were hunting intent. Any heat sig, any radar ping, any convoy shifting inside Houthi territory. Marked, tracked, prioritized.
Third, new doctrine, the reveal doctrine. Now that the enemy showed they're willing to launch SAMs at US drones, the Pentagon gave the green light for a new playbook. Strike first, ask never. No warning shots, no negotiations. If Intel picks up a launch signature or even a targeting sequence before anything leaves the rail, it's already over.
Fourth, they made it personal. Top Houthi operators tied to the drone strike, added to the HVT list. Mobile teams started tracking comms. Geofence intel kicked in. The strike did its job. Now the real operation began.
So now here's the question. Was it enough? Drone avenged, launcher wiped out, protocols updated. But did anything really change? The Red Sea's still a war zone, shipping lanes are still under threat, and the Houthis, they're hurt, but they're not out. What did change? The attitude. The US isn't reacting anymore. It's hunting.
The Ike and Truman strike groups aren't just defending waterways, they're redefining them. Every drone strike from now on is monitored, every launch site mapped, every sketchy radar pulse might get answered with steel.
And here's the bigger question. For you, the reader. If you were calling the shots that night, would you have stopped after one strike, or doubled down and wiped the whole network? Drop it in the comments. Be bold. Be real. There's no wrong move, only strategy.
Because these aren't just military calls anymore. They're political, economic, global. Every container ship going through Bab el-Mandeb now sails under the shadow of one Reaper. And the promise of 50 missiles in return. What happens next depends on who blinks first.
The Houthis shot down a drone. What'd they get in return? A swarm of missiles that tore up their sites, and total silence from the US government.
But here's the thing. It's not over, because that MQ-9 wasn't just a drone, it was a signal. A signal that the rules just changed. And the US Navy ain't here to take punches anymore. It's here to end threats.
The Red Sea is not just a hotspot, it's a live testing ground for modern war ISR drones, smart munitions, electronic warfare, counterstrike doctrine, and the next engagement might already be loaded on deck, because every time a Houthi radar lights up, it might be the last time. Every drone launch could kick off a 24-hour bombing cycle, and the next shot they fire might not miss. So here's your final question. Should the US keep going strike for strike, or is it time to escalate and shut the whole thing down? Big thanks for watching, y'all. Drop your thoughts in the comments, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss a thing. At X News, we're all about keeping it real and fair. Catch you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.